What's good, great people? It's your boy Treble, and welcome back to another Talk with Treble terminology, where we break down the music industry's most important knowledge to help you elevate your studio game. Today, we're covering essential recording studio terms that every producer, engineer, artist, and studio personnel need to know. Let's jump right into it. So the first term is DAW, or Digital Audio Workstation. The DAW is the software used for recording, editing, arranging, and mixing music. Some of the most popular DAWs in the industry include Pro Tools, which is the industry standard for major studios and vocal recording. You have Logic Pro, which is popular among producers, songwriters, and musicians. You have FL Studio, which is widely used in hip-hop and EDM production. You have Ableton Live, which is favored for live performance and electronic music, popular with touring musicians and DJs. Then you have DAWs like Cubase and Studio One, which are versatile and growing in popularity. Knowing how to navigate a DAW efficiently can make or break your studio sessions, so just choose something that you like with a workflow that works for you. The second term is gain versus value. Gain controls the input level of a signal before it's processed. It affects the character of sound, especially in preamps and plugins. Value controls the output level of a signal after processing. It determines how loud the sound is heard, but does not change the tone. Pro tip: too much gain can introduce distortion. Always gain stage properly to avoid unwanted clipping. Or go ahead and drive it. This is what we call driving the preamp. And so sometimes you may want some distortion or clipping, so just play with it and get what you like. The third term is signal chain. And the signal chain refers to the path that audio takes from the source to the final output. A typical vocal recording setup might look like this. You have your microphone that leads to your preamp. The preamp leads to the compressor. The compressor leads to the EQ. The EQ goes into the DAW, and the DAW contains your effects, and your effects finally go out to your master. Each step in the chain affects the final sound, so understanding and optimizing your signal flow is crucial. The fourth term is headroom. Headroom is the amount of space between the loudest peak of your audio signal and 0 dB, the digital clipping point. Keeping 3 to 6 dB of headroom is important because it allows the mixing and mastering engineers to work without distortion. The fifth term is compression, my favorite term if you follow Talk with Treble. A compressor reduces the dynamic range of an audio signal by making loud sounds quieter and quiet sounds louder. Key settings include threshold, the level which compression starts to take effect; ratio, how much compression is applied, i.e. 4 to 1 means for every 4 decibels above the threshold, only 1 decibel gets through. Then there's the attack and release, which controls how quickly compression starts and fades out. Lastly, there's the makeup gain, which boosts the overall volume after compression to compensate for the lost loudness. Pro tip: use parallel compression to add thickness to vocals for drums without making them sound over-compressed. The sixth term is EQ, or equalization. And EQ is used to adjust frequencies in a mix. It's measured in hertz, which defines the frequency spectrum from low bass to high treble. Here's a basic frequency breakdown. So you got the sub bass, which is from 20 to 60 hertz. The deepest low end frequencies are felt more than heard. Too much can make a mix muddy. Then you have your bass range, which is from 60 to 250 hertz. That adds warmth and body to a track. It's essential for kick drums and bass guitars. It gives it that rumble or thump. Then you have your low to mid range, which is 250 hertz to 500 hertz. And it can add fullness to a mix, but too much makes it sound boxy or muddy or muffled, if you will. Then you have your mids, which is the 500 hertz range to the 2 kilohertz range, where vocals, guitars, and many instruments sit. Overboosting this range can make a mix sound very harsh or blaring. Then you have your upper mids, which is 2 kilohertz to 4 kilohertz, and that adds presence and clarity to vocals and instruments. You have your treble, which is 4 kilohertz to 20 kilohertz, which enhances your airiness and sparkle, especially in cymbals and vocals. Pro tip: cut your problem frequencies before boosting the others. Subtractive EQ can make a mix clearer without adding any unnecessary loudness. The seventh term is phantom power, or 48V. A plus 48V power supply is required for condenser microphones to function. If you're using a condenser mic and you don't hear sound, 9 times out of 10, check if your phantom power is enabled on your interface or preamp, and that should solve your problem. The 8th term is latency, and latency is the delay between when a sound is played or sung and when it's heard through the monitor or headphones. High latency can throw off recording timing, making it difficult for musicians and vocalists to perform. Most DAWs have a low latency monitoring feature to help minimize this delay. The 9th term is bus and aux sends. A bus is a group channel where multiple tracks are routed for processing together. An example, all vocal tracks can be sent to a vocal bus for shared EQ and compression. It just makes things way easier when you're doing a session or trying to get a rough mix. And then your auxiliary sends are used to apply effects like reverb or delay without affecting the original track. And this method also saves CPU power and keeps the mixes more flexible so you can make adjustments later. The 10th term is clipping and distortion. Clipping occurs when an audio signal exceeds 0 dB and starts to distort. It sounds harsh and unpleasant. Analog distortion can be used intentionally, like on guitar amps, for warm, but digital distortion from clipping should be avoided. It's just nasty stuff. Pro tip, keep your master output below negative 3 dB to prevent clipping. The 11th term is mixing versus mastering. Always confused. Mixing is adjusting levels, EQ, compression, pattern, and effects to create a balanced song, while mastering is the final step that ensures a song sounds polished, loud, and consistent across different playback systems and forms. The 12th term is reference tracks. A reference track is a professionally mixed song used as a comparison for your own mix, and it helps to check the balance of bass, mids, and highs, stereo width, and dynamic range. Pro tip, level match your reference track with your mix so you're comparing sound quality, not just volume. The 13th term is BPM and time signature. So BPM stands for beats per minute. The speed of a song, i.e. 120 BPM is common for pop, 140 BPM for trap, or 90 BPM for boom bap hip hop. Time signature defines rhythmic structure. 4/4 is the most commonly used in pop and hip hop and rock. 3/4 or 6/8 is common in R&B, waltz, ballads, and some praise and worship music even. The 14th term is stems versus multitracks. So stems are actually group files, i.e. all the drums are in one file, all the vocals in another, and it's used for remixes and mastering. Whereas multitracks are individual recordings of each instrument or vocal used for deep mixing. 15 is take, comping, and punching. So a take is a single recording pass. Comping is selecting the best section from the multiple takes that you've done to create the perfect performance. And punching is re-recording only a small section without redoing the entire take. So for my final thoughts, if you are serious about working in a recording studio, these terms should be second nature to you. Understanding them will streamline your sessions, improve communication, and level up your professionalism. If you found this talk with Treble helpful, let me know what other studio topics you might want me to break down. And let's keep the conversation going. And make sure your studio game stays strong. I've been Tony Treble, and never forget, your will is your way.